make yourself at home.
Good morning. Well, it's good morning for me anyway, because I am in Auckland, New Zealand, and it's 7 a.m. Near the end of winter, so it's cold, and I've just had some coffee. And for most of you, I can see it's an evening, you're in Netflix zone or dinner zone. So thank you for joining us on this webinar on how to move to New Zealand and specifically how to get a job in New Zealand, because the job is so important now, more important than ever before. My name is Scott Matheson. I'm the co-founder of Working In, and we've been doing this for almost 20 years, helping people move to New Zealand. So thank you very much for joining us. There's a lot of people on here today, and we've got a huge amount of information packed into a very short amount of time. I've actually got 4 panelists today, so I'm going to get into it right now and introduce you. They're all from all around the world. But first, close to home, Monique Power, who's in Auckland. Monique, if you could introduce yourself.
Kia ora, everyone. So my name's Monique Power. I'm a migration and journey consultant here at Working In. I'm born in New Zealand to Dutch migrants. Fortunate enough to have lived in both countries, both the Netherlands and New Zealand. I now call New Zealand my home, and I'm very proud to now work for Working In and to help people like yourself wanting to move to New Zealand. Thanks.
And welcome back from Fiji, Monique.
Yeah, thank you.
And over in the UK, we have 2 Pauls. First, Paul Goddard.
Yeah, hi Scott. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us on here again. My name's Paul. I've been working in for a very long time. I can't even remember how long it is now. I moved to New Zealand with my family back in 2003, and have been helping people do the same, I don't know, for the last 15 years or so. So just want to let you know you're all in the right place.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, very experienced panelist here. And Paul Arthur from the north of England.
Yeah, evening, everybody. I'm Paul Arthur. I've been involved in migration for over 20 years, shall we say. My role at Working In is the relocation side. You know, getting the job is absolutely critical, getting the visas critical, but once you've got those, making the move to New Zealand safely and smoothly, that's where I come in.
Awesome, thank you. And then heading south down into South Africa. It's amazing, this Zoom, isn't it? We're talking to people all around the world. Sarah Hewitt, welcome.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name's Sarah. I currently live in South Africa, but as you can hear, I'm from the UK. I've been a licensed advisor for about 7 or 8 years now, and I'm quite used to helping people on their journey in order to migrate to New Zealand. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. And then finally, I want to welcome Zinni Cheng, who's on our chat. Zinni is heads up our immigration team here in Auckland. So we have a reasonably large team. Well, in fact, we've probably got one of the biggest teams in New Zealand in terms of immigration and immigration support. And Zinni's right up in the top row there, and she is on the chat. And so please, I invite you to ask questions. If things get a little bit specific to you, she probably isn't in a position to answer that. So please keep it generic. And if not, then we can have a chat offline later. So really today is about how do you move to New Zealand in this current environment. I'm going to give you a bit of a summary, but I'm not going to do too much talking. A quick summary of what we're going to cover. Okay, so there's a quick overview on where things are now with immigration. Where do you start? Because that's a real problem. We don't want to be spinning it around and around and around looking at the internet all night long. Can you make the move? Because there's no point in trying this if you can't actually move. And how do you do that? How do you get a job? And identifying and overcoming the barriers. So there are a lot of barriers in this whole process. And, one of the reasons why we kind of exist is that we are licensed immigration advisors to assist you in making the move and removing those those barriers that come along. There's a lot of roadblocks, and I guess what we're trying to do is get those out of the way and make this journey as stress-less as possible. So just quickly, what is a licensed immigration advisor? I mean, Sarah Hewitt, you are LIA. It's 3 letters that we talk about a lot. Can you just, what is the advantage of using an LIA, Sarah?
I'd say the important kind of key points of using an advisor is that we will ensure that your qualifications and your experience will fit the criteria for actually receiving a job in New Zealand. We look at your health, your character, we assess your point score, and just ensure that you would be able to gain residency in the future. We also work with the employers so they know the immigration regulations in order for that work visa approval. And then you will have the highest chance of success. I'd say they are the key points.
And of course, in terms of the client fund?
Yeah, as we are registered with the IAA, which is the Immigration Advisors Authority, we have to abide to the code of conduct. So we keep your money in a client fund, and then we will only move that across when we invoice and we've actually earned that money. So you always know that you're safe in terms of if you require a refund or perhaps if you stop the process.
I think that's a really key point for anyone who's listening, whether you use us or someone else, is that licensed immigration advisors do offer you protection. And I think if there's one thing that you need to be aware of when you're making a once-in-a-lifetime move is that you want to get this done properly. And we, you know, if there's one thing we don't want you to do, and that's spend money with people that are less than ethical, okay? So this gives you the protection. Look, what's happening in New Zealand now? Extraordinary times really for the whole world, isn't it? Coming off the back of COVID and, you know, a lot of growth for New Zealand. Especially, we were in such a hard lockdown. Our borders were shut for so long, and now we're coming out of COVID with all the restrictions going. And what we found is that for 2 years, New Zealand, which has traditionally been very reliant on offshore people for all sorts of jobs, those people simply aren't here. So our unemployment rate is very low, you know, in the low 3%. And we here in New Zealand, you know, we're working in, that's what we are. We talk to employers every day, you know, all day, every day, who are wanting to find skilled people from around the world. And there's just this chronic shortage. It's absolutely biting us in healthcare, in IT, in engineering, in construction, in agricultural, horticulture, in fisheries. My word, the list actually goes on and on and on, because simply we've got to a point where, and most employers would agree with us, that there's just not enough New Zealanders to do the work that's around. So what does this mean for you as a potential migrant? It means that immigration is tied specifically to jobs. So what's happened over the last little while, and I'm going to bring up a screen which summarizes this, is that there are massive opportunities. There is low unemployment. There's changes to the immigration settings and the need for skilled workers. And Paul, you know, you're talking to people every day. In terms of the new immigration settings, there's some significant changes in there. You just want to quickly try and run through the accreditation process and the job check process. People understand it because it's quite critical.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest changes we've seen in, I don't know, 20 years or so. Every employer now who wants to hire from overseas has to get accredited with the New Zealand government. Now, don't get this confused with the old accreditation system, because it's completely different. That's gone. That's out of date. In the simple overview, accreditation means the government checking that it's a good employer. Is it a good employer, good HR practices, paying the right salaries, and has a real need to hire people from overseas? So they're checking all that out, which is good. That's good. It protects you. It also requires the employer to tell New Zealand immigration the people, how many people does it want? What are those people? How many years experience do they want them to have? What kind of qualification do they want them to have? Almost to set out job descriptions for each person that they want to hire, And then if immigration agree, they get tokens. So 1 token per job. So if you want 5 people and the immigration agree, you get 5 tokens. And when you fill those roles, then your token goes and then you've got to go again. So what this really means is there's an added complexity here that wasn't here before. Previously, any employer in New Zealand could offer you a job. You could see a job advertised online, fire off your CV, the employer could respond and offer you a job. That isn't the case now. They have to be accredited to secure a job offer and a visa for you. This means if your strategy is firing off CVs to jobs that you're seeing advertised online, there was only a tiny chance of that succeeding pre-pandemic. That's diminished even further now. The odds are you're going to be firing off CVs to employers who aren't accredited, because most employers aren't accredited yet. This is a brand new process and we're going through it. And thousands of employers are getting accredited, but you're wasting your time. If the employer can't see a clear way forward for you and for them, it's almost impossible for them to move forward. And this is why we provide employment support. And the big shift here is employment support now is actually about supporting the employer because they need their barriers removing. They didn't have barriers before. They've suddenly got them. We know how to remove the barriers for you as migrants and give you the tools to interact with these employers. And we do that. But what we also need to do is focus on removing the barriers for the employers that stop them engaging with you. An employer needs to know that if they offer you a job, it's all going to be okay. And it's all going to run quickly and smoothly. Because if they can't see that, they can't move forward.
Yeah. So thanks, Paul. So just to try and summarize here is that you can't get a job in New Zealand unless the employer is accredited. And I think that accreditation is important because it actually gives you, the potential migrant, the knowledge that the employer is accredited, and therefore they've been essentially passed or vetted by Immigration New Zealand, which means they've got good employment practices, that they've got cash flow to support your income, and that they're known. So the whole system was brought in to reduce exploitation. And so it's actually a really good system in that it protects you. The issue, of course, is that finding the job is in these early stages is going to be a little bit more challenging because not every employer is accredited yet. Only a few thousand are accredited. So that creates a bit of a block. And then the second part, Paul, what I'm understanding here is that they need to have a job check. So if you're a diesel mechanic, you need to apply for an employer that has already had a job check approved. You'll get used to this language. You really want to be talking to employers that have a job check approved. And what a job check approved means is that they've got tokens. Okay. Yeah. So they might have 5 tokens, right, for diesel mechanics. And then as a diesel mechanic, you can apply and hopefully there's a match there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. Yeah, go.
Yeah, sorry, Scott. But and the other thing is this, the good news, I guess, is this is the first time ever we've got employers in New Zealand not only saying that they're open to hiring people from overseas, they're actually going through a process so that they can hire people from overseas. They want to hire people from overseas.
100%.
The other side of this, though, and one of the questions that I know a lot of people will ask is, where are these employers? Is there a list? At the moment, no. And we know because we were talking to Immigration last week on another webinar, they don't know if there's going to be a list, and even if there is a list, not every employer is going to want to be on that list, because if they are, they're going to get flooded with CVs from all over the world that they're just going to delete, because the employer will delete your CV unless they know that everything's going to be okay. One of the other popular misconceptions with employer accreditation is because an employer is accredited, they're going to help you get the visa. Accreditation has nothing to do with the visa process in that way. An employer is not required to understand visas to become accredited. So they still have no idea about how the visas work half the time. And so don't get mixed up with that. That barrier is still there. So the barriers are on both sides. We're there in the middle to remove the barriers on both sides.
And so thanks, Paul. Sarah, in terms of age limits and those sorts of things and residency, I mean, that's all still possible, right? And what is the age limit for New Zealand?
So you need to be 55 or under in order to go through the point system. So as I said before, we would be able to calculate those points, ensure that you would meet that age limit when the time comes for you being able to gain residency.
Okay. And Monique, you know, you talk to a lot of people every day. I think one of the things that is really important, and if I go back to our agenda, it's, you know, can you make the move? You know, we don't want people wasting the time, do we? Fundamentally.
No, absolutely not. That's why it's quite a good idea to do a free assessment, a short assessment. It's just a short form that you fill out. It just gives us a little bit of an idea, your age, your occupation, your education, who is migrating with you, children, health issues, etc. That gives us an idea, okay, yeah, these are people that could potentially move to our country. And from there, we may invite you to do a free appraisal call with myself or a colleague of mine. If you're in South Africa, we have someone there as well, or in the UK. And during that consultation, we just have a generic chat. It's really important for us to understand your motivation to move to New Zealand. Make sure you're well informed, that you make an informed decision when you move to New Zealand, that you've got an arsenal of information there. And then that chat, we explain a lot to you about what is needed. It's called My Visa Path. My Visa Path is a full assessment. That's the next phase. It's a full assessment of your eligibility to move to New Zealand. We go into a lot more depth there. You can also attach your CVs to that particular assessment form as well. There is a cost to that. That is 299 New Zealand dollars. And once you get that report emailed through to you, you then also have a 1 hour, 45 minutes to an hour consultation with a licensed immigration advisor. And together you go through that report, make sure you understand it, make sure you're happy with the outcome. And you can also ask lots of other questions that maybe not even visa related. Maybe you want to ask more questions about, you know, the way of life in New Zealand, the cost of living in New Zealand, the total cost of immigration. Some people have got no idea what it's going to cost them. If you've got children, you may want to know more about the education system in New Zealand. There's a lot to cover. It's quite in depth, and yeah. And so, and that gives us then you an idea and us an idea of where you sit.
Yeah, so that first assessment, there's no charge for that, is there, Monique?
No,
Okay.
there's no charge.
So we'll hopefully we'll have that link put up in the chat, and then if people want to actually start filling in that form and just seeing if on the face of it you look as though you're eligible, then it's just helps you. If you are, it just gives a lot of momentum and a lot of positivity and a lot of hope, and that's awesome, because, you know, we all want to know whether we can do this or not. And I'll just come back to the point that New Zealand requires skilled people. The system is challenging, but we have incredibly strong needs. So it's really just about navigating the system and getting in touch with the employers that are actually eligible to employ migrants. And it's possible. It is possible. It's challenging. And if you get to that point and you're in the process and you get a job offer and it's all very exciting, then you still have to move to the other side of the world. And in some respects, that's the most challenging thing. And that's why we've got Paul Arthur on here, because, you know, getting the job is step one. Moving is the big and challenging step two. Paul, do you just want to give our audience here and I an update on what you do and how you can help, and you know, when people should start this process as well?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, Scott's absolutely right. Getting the visa and getting the job is key, but the most important thing and the most critical thing after you've got to that stage is planning and then making the move safely and making it as straightforward as you can. And then once you get into New Zealand, settling quickly and getting yourselves organized so you can start work, your family can start getting settled, and so on from there. What we try to do is use 20 years experience about putting relationships together with specific companies who we vet, we approve, and you can use with absolute confidence. You know, once you start the process with working in, I'll make contact with you. I will have a chat. I'll explain exactly what we do, and I'm here to help all the way through the process. So if you have questions about property, about schooling, I can help you with that. You know, we help with opening bank accounts. We help you buy New Zealand dollars at a preferable exchange rate, far more so than a bank. We can give you advice on tax and accountancy. You know, if people in the UK have got pensions they want to transfer, it's really critical to take proper professional advice to make sure it's the right thing for you to do. We've got experts to do that. We organise removals, flights. We've got pet shippers. When you get to New Zealand, you might need to have a car. We have an arrangement with one of the biggest car dealers in New Zealand who can rent you a car, who can sell you a car. We organise your flights. We've got specialists who do nothing else but migration flights. So in many cases, they can get you an enhanced weight allowance. So there's all sorts of different services we can offer. In due course, you're going to look to buy a property. We can help you organise a mortgage. So we're trying to sort of cover all possibilities for you, and we're trying to sort of come up with answers to questions before you even ask them. Scott.
Okay, that's a beginner's mistake. I was on mute. Sorry, folks. So Paul, you know, you're obviously based in the UK. There's a lot of people on this webinar who are in the UK, and you've got all these services for people that are in the UK. But what if you're not living in the UK? Can you still assist? Because this whole relocation thing, you know, you can actually spend thousands more than you need to if you're not with the right partners, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have companies we work with all over the world. We've got moving companies and pet shippers in South Africa, in Europe, in the States. So, you know, I work with clients from all over the world. You know, some countries, you know, it's difficult to pronounce sometimes, but we have contacts and we can give people the right advice to make sure that they are going to use companies who will do a good job, who they can use with confidence.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So just so that look, I think one of the points that we're making is that this is a journey, isn't it, Paul Goddard? It's not find a job on out. It's there's a lot. And Paul, you've been doing this for so long. Wow, I can't believe how many people you've assisted. But one thing that always sticks in my mind is you talking about the plan, having the plan right from the outset.
Having the plan, the four steps. Yeah, this is great, and people will, in the next 3 minutes, I'll simplify things very, very easy for people to understand. There are 4 steps to moving to New Zealand. People might laugh. Get ready, get a job, get a visa, get on a plane. Sounds simple. It's not, right? Because you have to break them down. Get ready means preparation. That means information ready, document ready, able to prove you're ready. Getting a job offer means employment support to remove the barriers that exist between you and the employers and put yourself in the best position to interact with those employers and put yourself ahead of all the other millions of people who are trying to move to New Zealand and doing it badly. You don't want to be doing what they're doing. You want to be doing something different. Step 3 is visas, as Sarah touched on. The devil's in the detail, as they say, when it comes to visas. It's not about filling out forms. Anybody can fill out forms. It's the evidence that goes with those forms. It's the way it's presented. It's checking that every step of the way ticks the boxes that it needs to tick. That stuff is not on the internet. So if you're just spinning around on the internet, stop, you know. And that 4th step, moving to New Zealand, that's what Paul Arthur's just talked about. Relocation. Where are you going to live? What about renting a property? What about schools for the kids? It's about the family or about your partner. This isn't just get a job, get a visa, get on a plane. We're one of the few companies that takes you from where you are, which is sitting on a Zoom webinar now, to where you want to be, which is settled in New Zealand and living an amazing lifestyle. And we do it by taking you through those 4 steps. And we've all been in this industry a long time. There isn't anybody who does what we do in the way that we do it, because that we're lucky. We're in a position to do this. Working in, as you mentioned, Scott, wasn't set up to do visas. It was set up to help New Zealand employers find skilled people from overseas. That's been the core of the business from day one, and still is. That's where we're unique. We added visas 15 years ago or whenever it was because we needed to give peace of mind to the people who want to move and the employers who want to hire them. And that's why we do things in the way that we do them. It doesn't matter if you're an architect, a doctor, an engineer, an astronaut, the process is the same. And if you have a process and you have support, that's how you make the move. That's how you get ahead of everyone else. That's how you get engaged with employers. Make sense?
Well, yeah, it makes sense. I just want to be very clear that we are not the people that are going to find you the job. So who's responsible for finding the job?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really important and something that we do stress. And when anyone has a consultation with me, they'll get this in a lot more detail, obviously, about them and their move. The person who is trying to get the job offer is the best person to be interacting with the employer. If you're watching this webinar now and you're an architect or a nurse or whatever, you know better than anyone what you do, how you do it, who you want to do it for. We're here to give you the tools to put you in the best position to interact with those employers and remove the barriers that stop the employers engaging with you. This is not us going out and getting you a job offer. That just doesn't, it's not the real world. You know, you've got to be motivated. You've got to be committed. You've got to put the effort in. You've got to put the time in. This is teamwork. That's how you succeed. Sitting back and letting somebody else get you a job offer is not going to work. It just doesn't work. It never really has. And we're very clear on that. But also, neither does randomly firing off CVs on your own. That doesn't work either. It's having support. And that's why we call what we do employment support.
We've got shall we bring up that screen on the, so Monique, do you want to explain what's here for people in the employment portal?
Okay, once you are a client of ours, we will give you your own unique login. You can then log into the employment support portal. From there will be videos that you can watch how to, how you may need to change your CV to suit the New Zealand job market. Cover letters are extremely important in New Zealand. If you don't have a good cover letter to accommodate your CV to go with it, then we suggest that you write a good one. There are tools there to assist you on how to write a good one. It is something that's very new, this employment support portal, and we are still finalising the final details. But once it's up and running, it's going to be a very good tool for you to use.
Yeah, and there's a lot of information on the visa side of it as well, because Sarah, what are the sorts of things that people can start doing now in order to prepare, if they do have a skill in demand and they are committed to moving to New Zealand, then there's a huge amount of documentation that's required, isn't there?
Yes. And this is where I've found in the past, people that attempt to do this process on their own, this is where they fall short, because if they have a partner or they're married, they think that just a marriage certificate is sufficient. And as we know, there's a whole list of documents. And I find that's kind of the main area where people aren't sure what to actually submit, and then they can get a declined application. So it's really important for an advisor to supply you with that checklist and ensure that you've kind of dotted every I, so to speak. Yeah.
What's interesting, everyone, is that on Sunday, and this just if we sort of go back to the critical skills shortages that New Zealand has, up until Sunday, for most occupations, the minimum pay rate for a skilled migrant was $27.76 New Zealand dollars an hour, and which is the median wage in New Zealand. So the pay rate, the minimum pay rate for skilled migrants to move to New Zealand on specific categories was the median wage of New Zealand. So it's really good because our minimum wage is $21.40. So it was really beneficial for skilled migrants, and shows that we are supporting skilled migrants with good good high wages. However, on Sunday, because our shortages are so intense in certain categories like aged care, a number of construction roles, some roles in meat processing and fisheries, they've dropped that rate to $25 an hour to make it more appealing and easier for employers to find people from offshore. So look, it just gives you, and that's because of incredible pressure here being put on the government, because if you just have to go onto any of the websites, the news websites, and you can see that everyone's talking about lack of skills shortages. So done right, done correctly, then, and going through a process, there is a way forward. So Monique, I think without, I mean, I know we've said this before, but how do you get started on your road to New Zealand? Your first thing is to put your stake in the ground, right?
Absolutely, put the stake in the ground and own it. It is really by doing My Visa Path. That is where you start. That is going to give you so much clarity. It will show you how to start, where to start, and indeed, as you said, Scott, just putting your stake in the ground, and momentum will take over from there.
Yeah,
My Visa Path is the way to start.
Yeah, it's just the starting point, isn't it?
Mm.
And then I think the next thing really is, once you've managed to find that job, do you just want to run through once again, Paul, the sorts of partners? Can we bring that slide up? It's got a whole lot of the partners that we're working with here.
Yeah, we look at really as many aspects of relocating your life to New Zealand as we possibly can. People take for granted what they've got here in their home country in the UK and don't always appreciate just what needs to happen. We've got arrangements with the Bank of New Zealand. They will actually open your bank account before you even arrive in New Zealand. And that's really important, because when you've got a bank account number, it means you can actually give those details to your new employer. You can go onto the payroll, so you can actually get paid an awful lot more quickly than if you hadn't got a bank account in the first place. A lot of people are selling property, so they've got some equity to take. And using a bank, like I said before, is not always a good move. Their exchange rates are pretty low. We work with specialist foreign exchange brokers who can give you a commercial exchange rate, and that can be between 3 and 6% more than a bank. It just gets you more New Zealand dollars for your pound than you would probably get elsewhere. So it's a real good way of getting extra cash to take with you. We've got, people can help you with insurance. Some people need medical and health insurance, life insurance. We can organize all these through specialist brokers in New Zealand. And a lot of the people, are in New Zealand. They're on the ground. They know exactly what you need, and they're independent. So they will give you access to a whole range of different services and products. Planning your flight, it's important. When you go, how you go, which way are you going, what are the ages of the children. It's about putting a budget together. We've got the experts who are happy to talk to you in advance as part of your planning and preparation for the move. You're working with experts to get through the visa process. You're preparing that. You're working with the employment support people, so you're getting professional help there. We've got a lot of professionals as well who you can talk to, particularly if you're taking pets. Now, New Zealand is strict. It is very strict. You need to be planning this well in advance. Usually a minimum of 7 months preparation is needed before you can fly a dog or a cat. So if that's the case, talk to me quickly. We can get our pet experts to talk to you. They can tell you what needs to happen. They can give you the help, advice, and support you need to make sure a key element of your family travels safely with you. They even arrange quarantine for you in New Zealand.
Paul, thank you. Look, we're going to have to wrap up. I'm just going to ask them to bring some photos across the screen about life in New Zealand for those of you that have not been to New Zealand. I think, I know we've sort of gone quite deep into immigration and some of the issues that we're facing now, but at the end of the day, there is a beautiful country here with an amazing lifestyle. And I'm going to ask everybody, Monique and Sarah and Paul, just to give a quick 1 minute summary. And while we'll do that, we'll just bring some photos up of how we live, which is very family orientated, beach kind of lifestyle. So, Monique, you know, what are your last words, please?
Just fill out that free appraisal form. I think there's a link to it later on. I think after this, is there, Scott?
Yep, there was. Yep.
Okay, just fill that out. This might only take you about 5 minutes. Nothing to lose. As Scott said, we're so grateful that we live in this beautiful country. It's wonderful. Just come and join us. We need you.
Yeah, we need you. That's a good point. All these photos are actually from working in staff, so they're not just off the internet or anything like that. And Sarah, so nice to have you from Cape Town. And there's a lot of South Africans and other Africans on this. So, you know, what are your final words?
I would say that in terms of, living, New Zealand is quite similar to South Africa, but obviously it's in a first world country. So in terms of lifestyle, I would say that it's a really good route for South Africans to go to, and it's very family orientated. A lot of my previous clients, they're all about family, and I think that's why they love living there. Well, that's the feedback I've got.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's some more coming up. Thanks, Sarah. Nice to have you on board.
Thank
Paul,
you.
got out in the UK.
Yeah, look, if you want to move to New Zealand, my message is don't try and reinvent the wheel. Thousands of people have moved before you. Thousands of people will move after you. There's people right here in front of you who know how this works. Talk to us. It's that simple. Just talk to us. Fill out the form, get in front of us, and then if we can help you, we will.
You don't appear that scary, Paul.
Sorry?
You're not that scary, are you? Easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I'm very aware of the time. We said would be 40 minutes. It's 39 minutes on my clock. So I think even though there's more to talk about, what we wanted to do was to give you a summary of, you know, the first steps. How do you do this? How do you get a job? How do you get your visa? And, you know, is it possible to move to New Zealand? The answer is yes. You know, complete that at first, free eligibility assessment. We'll get back in touch with you. It might not be immediately. We're getting hundreds a day. But look, we really wish you good luck on your journey and hope to see you in this wonderful place in the coming months and years. So, kia ora, good night. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.